Okay, sorry about that. We were talking about the different criterias for different anxiety disorders, and I was looking up the criteria for generalized um, anxiety disorder, but I decided instead of going over all of these in depth, I just want to give an overview. So let's just talk in general about generalized anxiety disorder. Okay? This is the one thing that needs to be stressed the most. In each diagnosis, no matter what the diagnosis is, as a therapist, I'm always looking to see, does this particular patient or client described symptoms meet the classification for this particular disorder? And in most cases, there can be anywhere from 2 up to 5, 6, or 8 criteria, and they will usually state that you need to meet, say, 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 6 or what have you of the criteria before you can classify the um, person with that particular disorder. Okay? Um, in the case of generalized anxiety disorder, a person has to have excessive worry and anxiety for a period of 6 months or more. And this is very common with most disorders. The DSM will usually use 6 months as a base for determining the severity of the symptoms and the criteria that is related to that disorder. Um, and so that's the first thing. So if you're going through worry and anxiety for a few weeks or even a couple of months, it still can't be diagnosed as a disorder. Something else could be going on. You could have the symptoms of that disorder, or you might have a condition or what we refer to in the mental health profession as a V code, which is a series of different conditions that are um, not not disorders, but still there's something going on with that patient or client um, that gives reason to um, have support the therapy, okay? And so that could be going on. So try to remember that that's the most important thing is, have you been going through this for 6 months or more? And that's usually the case with just about everything else, okay? As we go through this list of disorders, keep that in mind. The symptoms have to be present for 6 months or more in most cases. Um, then you get into other criterias um, that mainly focus on things regarding how it's having an effect on the person's ability to function. Um, Mental health therapists will use a scale called the Global Assessment Scale, or it's a Global Assessment Functioning Scale, GAF it's called, okay? And on that scale, the higher the number, the more severe the symptoms. Um, in most cases, if you don't if you have mild symptoms, okay, um, then they might number you as a 40 or 45 or something like that. When you get up near around the 50 range on that scale, then it means that there could be possibly a disorder taking place. And the higher you go above 50, the more severe the situation is with that particular client, okay? And so you want to take a look at factors of how is this having an effect on your ability to function daily, okay? Is it interfering with your ability to eat, to sleep, to work, to go to school, to socialize with your friends? Is it interfering with your ability to sleep at night? Okay, all of these things that have to do with your general functioning throughout the day. If they're being interfered with because of the anxiety, then that's another criteria. And then we have the DSM-5 lists a total of 7 criteria just for generalized anxiety disorder. So there will be several more criteria that the therapist is going to be looking at, okay? And they're going to want to see, do you fit those criteria? Because if you don't, then we have to look at something else. Now, one of the things that's not mentioned on my list, and it's important to get to it, and I'm going to mention it in more detail as we get into the depression part of this um, particular presentation, okay? Um, but there's something that is called an adjustment disorder, and it's not listed on um, my list, okay? It's not listed here, all right? But it probably should be mentioned when we get down to the depressive disorders, but it also has to do with anxiety because we're going to get more into the detail of this, but anxiety and depression go hand in hand, and there actually is a disorder uh, that combines the two together. And whether or not it's anxiety or depression and anxiety, um, there's something called an adjustment disorder. And a lot of times a therapist will put this down as their official diagnosis if the patient comes in. I don't know, client. We're supposed to call you clients, okay? But some people refer to them as patients. But if the client comes in and it, like we were talking earlier, they don't meet all of the criteria for generalized anxiety disorder or one of the other listed disorders, then the therapist might look into something called an adjustment disorder. Because sometimes you can be going through an adjustment in your life. Let's say you got a new job, or excuse me, you're moving into a new home, or you're trying to sell your home, or what have you. And if you're going through something like that and you're struggling with the adjustment period, that would be a diagnosis that we could look into too. Here's the thing with that diagnosis, though, again, you're looking at symptoms that are going on for 6 months or more. So let's say that you moved into your home in last March and now it's September and you're still going through a lot of anxiety and worry about things. That possibly could be an adjustment disorder because you're having a difficult time adjusting. So that's another disorder that is common that was not on our list. That could be happening with some of the clients that come in for more short-term therapy. It gets complicated, folks, I know. And sometimes we might skip around a little bit and come back to stuff because I'm just winging this off the top of my head. Mostly because I don't want to be sitting here reading the internet or going through a bunch of books. You know, you have access to the internet. You can look up this information as well as I can. You know, you have access to books you can go look into and read too, which I highly encourage all of my people listening to this presentation to do if you want more detailed information. I'm just trying once again to just give that general overview. So therefore I am just sort of going off the top of my head, winging it here, improvising a little bit, okay? Because I want to just stay casual, if you will, okay? And give these presentations in a way so that perhaps they're entertaining for you and educational, and the main purpose is to either A, help you to make a decision if you want to come see me or do video counseling or phone counseling with me through my counseling business of Phenom um, Counseling Services. Um, so that could be I'm educating you for. I also am educating the entire general population, just so that you become aware of what's going on. Whether you're seeing me as a therapist or you're seeing someone else, or you're not seeing anyone at all, but just thinking about it, I'm hoping that perhaps these presentations will do some good. So, um, though, going forward, I'm going to just talk about these topics right off the top of my head, and not refer too much to internet sources, unless I have something that's very, very significant that we can just pop to right away. Because as we've seen in my last video, trying to find it can sometimes be difficult, and that's not a good way to run a video now, is it? Okay, so getting back to what I was talking about. So there you go, that's your generalized anxiety disorder. Now we mentioned, and I want to do this now to add to this. Underneath our little board here, we're going to write these in then as we talk about them. So we're going to add to our little board now. Okay. And notice I wrote in the word generalized for generalized anxiety disorder. Now, the next one that I think is important to talk about is panic disorders. Oh my gosh, so many people have panic disorders when they come to see me and they talk about them. I think that we might want to touch on the difference between an anxiety disorder and a panic disorder, because I think there are two. Stop that. An anxiety attack and a panic attack, okay? Because I think that sometimes the two can get confused. For me, an anxiety attack means that the person is suffering through such a high, severe amount of anxiety that it can cause them to feel an extreme amount of discomfort. They can go through all kinds of different physiological as well as mental and emotional discomfort, okay? And then an anxiety attack, when it becomes more serious, then leads into a panic attack, okay? So when a person is sitting there and they're just really super anxious and scared and afraid and starting to feel some physical discomforts, that's called an anxiety attack, okay? You can sometimes stop those a lot better than you can, because if the anxiety attack continues to grow and you don't do anything to stop it, then it can roll into and progress into a full-blown panic attack. And when that's happening, you can't stop it, okay? You just have to live through it, suffer through it. Some therapists talk about riding the wave of panic out. Yes, you're panicking, it's out of control, you're very, very scared, and just letting it sort of ride itself out until it dissipates. In other words, accepting, and here we go with that term acceptance. You're going to hear that a lot in my presentations. Acceptance of the panic, and just letting it be what it is. Because there's nothing you can do to stop it. What happens is 9 times out of 10 people have a panic attack and they'll try to stop it somehow. Now if you're in a situation where it's dangerous, like I've had panic attacks on the freeway, well, you might want to get off the freeway to ride out that panic attack and let it happen, okay? If you're in a situation where perhaps you were running a chainsaw or dangerous machinery, you might want to stop doing that and put yourself at a distance from it and let the panic attack then flow through you and just let it happen, okay? So unless you're handling dangerous machinery or in a dangerous situation where you could get seriously hurt. Um, as the panic starts to come over you, just allow the panic to happen, because a lot of times people, like I said earlier, will try to stop it. You can't stop it. Once it starts, it can't stop. It has to run its course. It's, I hate to say it, but it's sort of like when you have diarrhea when you're sick and there's nothing you can do once it starts. You just gotta let it flow out. Well, with panic attacks, it's sort of the same kind of thing, okay? You just gotta let it happen, all right? The key is how to prevent panic attacks from happening. And I talk a lot with my clients about this, okay? Um, the symptoms of a panic attack that we didn't go over yet include such things as rapid breathing, rapid heartbeat, um, overwhelming sense and feeling of doom and gloom, and a prevailing, overwhelming, irrational belief that you're going to die, okay? Some people can get tunnel vision where everything around them gets really black and dark and they only can see what's right in front of them. Um, all of these symptoms do not mean you're going to die or that you're even sick, okay? You let the panic run its course. The panic usually lasts anywhere from 30 seconds to up to a minute, maybe a minute and a half, almost like someone having a seizure. They don't last long, okay? And if you truly were having a heart attack, or you felt like you were, or if you truly were at death's door or in danger of dying, the symptoms would be a little bit different and would last for a longer period of time. Now, some people can have multiple back-to-back-to-back panic attacks. So the panic stops, it goes away, and then a few minutes later it comes back, and then it stops and goes away, and a few minutes later it comes back. But that's not the same as something that's continuous, okay? If this were to happen to you continuously for 10, 15 minutes, a half hour or more, then you would want to call 911 and get some immediate attention on it. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does. Um, anyways, and so we're going to add that to our little list here. And so we've written down anxiety attacks and panic. Okay? You know, I'm going to get more sophisticated with time. I'm going to get a board here, and we're going to do presentations back there, all right, with a board, and I'm going to learn to work this camera so that it'll look really super cool, and it'll be more like teaching a class, and so hopefully that's coming soon, okay? One more thing, and then I think we're going to call it quits on this part of our video series. Very quickly, we want to talk about phobias because they're related, especially agoraphobia, okay? Agoraphobia and any other phobias where people are scared of things like spiders, being in closed places, elevators, heights, being up on ladders. This is the kind of thing where a specific stimuli causes the panic attack. The person goes through life perfectly fine until they encounter the stimulus, and then that stimulus causes the anxiety attack, which can develop again into the panic attack for them. Okay? People that have these kinds of severe fears, okay, will do anything to prevent that. All right? A person with agoraphobia will um, do anything and everything to prevent themselves from, like we said earlier, going into a shopping mall or going to the grocery store or doing anything where they might encounter um, more than one or two people. Okay? And when it gets really bad, they can get to the point where they don't want to encounter anyone, not even on the phone or, um, you know, just period. Okay? Nobody. Don't want to talk to nobody, don't want to interact with anybody. Okay? And any interaction at all will trigger that panic attack. When things are getting that far out of control, you definitely need to seek a therapist that can go through that with you and try to help you. Not two, one, sorry. Um, the one thing that we want to emphasize here is something called desensitization. This is where you actually expose the person to the thing that they are afraid of a little bit at a time until they no longer are afraid. So let's say, for example, you have a fear of driving on freeways like I did, okay, or still do. Um, the only real cure for that is to expose yourself slowly to it a little bit at a time. Um, as soon as any kind of anxiety starts to build, then you stop. And then you go back to it at a later day or another time, and you try to go a little bit further and a little bit further and a little bit further. Each time, you know, exposing yourself more and more to it just a little bit at a time until you no longer are afraid. Now you can drive for miles on the freeway. The only thing about that is, um, it's difficult to do by yourself. And um, and you need to have someone present with you sometimes talking you through these exercises. When who wants to go with you on a ride in the car where you might kill them on the freeway? So for someone like me, it can be really difficult to get the proper treatment. But let's take then, for an example, something that you can get treatment for, like a fear of spiders. A lot of people have fears of spiders or snakes or other crawly insects, okay, and bugs or whatever. So again, what you would do, and you would do this with a therapist um, guiding you through it, okay, because the one thing that's important is building the trust with the therapist enough to the point where you know they're not going to allow anything to harm you or hurt you. That's the key to the thing. And once your therapeutic relationship has been established well enough that that kind of deep trust has been is firmly in place, then these exercises can really work, because then they can take you and expose you to um, things like a spider. You know, you could put a spider in an aquarium where they can't get out with a cage. There's no way in reality that they can get out. And then you have the person approach that spider in that aquarium by doing something as simple as opening the door of the room where the spider is, peering into the room, noticing the spider is there, and then shutting the door. And, you know, that's as far as you go. And then you peer and look in and look at the spider for a little bit longer, and then a little bit longer, and then maybe you take a step into the room, and then you just keep going one step at a time until you get to the point where you can hold the spider in your hand and you don't feel any fear or anxiety any longer. Okay, that's called desensitization. Okay, it's exposure to the thing in small bits and pieces, step by step, until eventually you no longer have any fear of that, whatever it is. Okay, so we're going to add that to our little list here. Running out of room. And we see phobias down there in the corner, right underneath. All right, right over here. So, I hope that you've enjoyed this. I'm going to see if I can edit this a little bit so it doesn't look so bad. Bear with me if it does look awful. The thing is, these videos will get better with time. Like I said, I'm going to get a drawing board in here. You know, you ever watch Dr. Robert Reich on Facebook? I love that guy. He does an excellent education series, and his videos, though, are small, short. Mine will be a little bit longer, more like these, 10, 20, maybe even 30 minutes long. Okay, and I want to do these videos in a way that's going to be really high class. I'm looking for assistants out there. I would like to get a volunteer assistant to help with this videotaping. We're Phenom Counseling Services and Paulette Professional Counseling and these education workshops and seminars. You wait. In a few months, they're going to be utterly fantastic. So please subscribe if you are watching on YouTube. Subscribe to my channel and keep with the updates on these videos. I promise you they're going to get really, really good. Okay? Hopefully, that's it for now. And hopefully we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.